Chairman Sanders, Chairman and fellow Floridian Miller, Ranking Members Burr and Michaud, and all members of the Senate and House Veterans Affairs Committees. It is my honor to represent the 2 million men and women of the veterans of foreign wars of the United States and our auxiliaries. I first want to congratulate Senator Sanders on his selection as Chairman and Congressman Michaud for his rise to Ranking Member. I also want to say that this afternoon I will present the VFW Congressional Award to Senator Patty Murray for her outstanding leadership and advocacy as a former Chairman of the Senate VA Committee. The VFW is deeply concerned about the impact sequestration will have on the Department of Veterans Affairs and Defense budgets. Maybe not this year, but in future budget submissions, and how the reduction in programs and services will impact our troops returning from Afghanistan, our veterans, and their families. The VFW fully realizes that America will soon turn its attention to other national priorities once our troops come home, and that is why we are here today, to ensure our nation does not turn its back on the brave men and women who have borne the battle, and doesn't forget their families who also served and sacrificed. My solemn pledge to you is the VFW not let America's veterans be forgotten by this Congress, by this administration, or by our nation. The VFW is very concerned that budgets with little to no increase will not sustain the level of VA care and service our veterans may require for a lifetime. That is why the VFW strongly supports and asks for the quick passage of Chairman Miller and Ranking Member Michaud's bipartisan bill, H.R. 813, the Putting Veterans Funding Family First Act of 2003. As we have seen with advanced appropriations for VA's medical care accounts, when VA knows how much funding they will receive, they can better plan and allocate their resources. Our veterans protected us while in uniform. Now is the time for Congress to protect them by passing H.R. 813. Since September 11, 2001, more than 55,000 service members have been wounded in action. This number does not include those suffering from traumatic brain injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, environmental toxin exposures, or those who may suffer from invisible wounds in years to come. The number is staggering, and our efforts to provide the best possible mental health care for our newest war veterans must also include those who faithfully served in the past. The latest report about 22 veterans committing suicide every day is heartbreaking. The VFW feels every loss, and we grieve with every family. Suicide is a nationwide epidemic, but a military or veteran suicide is especially painful because of the resources the outreach of VA and DOD have committed to awareness and prevention programs. It's hard to say more must be done, but it simply must be done. This is simply especially important inside the military services, where an amputee who remains on active duty is seen as heroic, but someone seeking mental health care is seen as weak. The VFW also needs the VA to ensure that women's health care programs are continually improved so that access and quality of care, along with patient privacy and safety, are equal to the extraordinary service they've given to our country. Unfortunately, women also suffer from a high rate of military sexual trauma, yet the VA denies their claim at a higher rate. We urge Congress to pass S-294 to afford them the same relaxed evidentiary burden that is given to soldiers engaged in combat. On traumatic brain injuries, we need VA to continue to aggressively research the impact of TBI and to evaluate alternative therapies and incorporate them into prescribed treatments. Another research issue is burn pits. Congress has now banned their use, but the damage has already been done to potentially hundreds of thousands of service members who might have inhaled toxic fumes while serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Follow-on research must include veterans from previous wars in their sampling studies, because exposure that produces a negative health condition must be considered service connection by the VA. In May 2011, the VA implementing the Caregivers and Veterans Omnibus Health Services Act of 2010, which recognizes that a traumatically wounded veteran's family is best suited to provide family-on care at home. Caregivers from all generations carry a great burden. Plus, they provide great value. So expanding the caregiver program for those seriously injured before 9/11 is simply the right thing to do. Regarding the Veterans Benefit Administration, the claims backlog, error rate, and lack of accountability are totally unacceptable. Yet the VFW continues to hope that technology and leadership will improve what is currently broke. For years, the VA claimed a backlog that only numbered 6, 7, 800,000 claims. Yet the VA's own Monday morning report shows 2 million claims of all kinds in the system, from original compensation and pension claims to education and those on appeal. We urge Congress to continue exercising the oversight by VBA's workload, the total workload, just not what VA admits is 125 days or older. We acknowledge that one of the most difficult things to do in any large organization is to ensure its employees, both rank and file and supervisors, are held accountable for their performance. VBA continues to refine its training standards and does periodically test job knowledge. But it is still easier to be disciplined for conduct and performance issues. This is because production is easier to track than quality, which is why the overall quality rating of the VA regional offices continues to hover around 86% and is far worse in other ROs. VBA needs to use data to identify employees with weak skills and retrain them. Those who cannot or will not improve need to be replaced. And let me say, in working for the federal government, especially the Department of Veteran Affairs, should be seen as a privilege, not a right. The need for accountability goes upstairs too, which is why we encourage your committee to ask VBA why specifically it failed to address problems in Baltimore, Oakland, Los Angeles as soon as they became apparent years ago. And we ask that you find out whether VBA leadership has any plans to identify those veterans who received wrong decisions and make them right. The VFW sees the Veterans Benefit Management System as the best opportunity to finally address the claims backlog, the rating quality problem, but we have reservations about the aggressive implementation schedule. VBMS provides daily glimpses of the operating system it was meant to become. But with any major computer system, problems continue to pop up with newly added regional offices. 20 ROs currently have the system, and VBA plans to install the rest by the end of June. We believe that this rapid but perhaps premature deployment of VBMS will actually slow production as more glitches are identified and IT technicians scramble to fix them. I have the great privilege as National Commander to visit VFW posts and veterans around the world. The claims backlog and the accuracy ratings decision are the #1 complaint. So let me be perfectly clear about this. It is absolutely imperative the VA get this system right. Regarding jobs, the unemployment rate among post-9/11 era veterans continues to be unacceptably high, far above the national average. Our government must do all that it can to encourage private sectors to hire more veterans. This includes creating a vocational rehabilitation for life program, as well as closing military civilian skills gaps and promoting legislation at the state and federal levels to clear easier path to civilian licenses. The VFW strongly supports these initiatives. A good first step in redesigned military transition assistance program. The TAP program can be made easier by giving the troops access to an individualized curriculum for education, entrepreneurship, and vocational and technical employment. On education, the post-9/11 GI Bill was intended to pay the full cost of tuition at a public institution, but some in-state residency requirements are so strict that some veterans are not receiving the education benefits we fought to create. This is why VFW supports the passage of H.R. 357, introduced by Chairman Miller and Ranking Member Michaud. And thank you, by the way. We also encourage that many of today's student veterans do have access to the information they need to make a sound academic decision. With this in mind, we recommend tying Chapter 36 counseling to GI Bill eligibility to ensure veterans are informed of their rights of educational counseling at the beginning of their GI Bill application process. Regarding capital infrastructure, the VA must aggressively work to close the $60 billion construction gap on 60-year-old facilities that will not improve with age. Capital leasing is another critical concern because current congressional budget rules require the VA to pay the entire amount of 20-year rental all in the first year of the lease. This is fiscally impossible, so we ask your help to find a way around the budget rules so VA can lease property for facilities such as community-based outpatient clinics. We also need your help with the VA's non-expired enhanced use lease authority to repurpose vacant or underutilized properties. Though not yet at your purview, I need to reiterate the VFW's total disagreement with the Pentagon's decision to rank its new Distinguished Warfare Medal in precedence higher than the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Last week, we gave our support to H.R. 833 to lower the medal status below the Purple Heart. We ask for your sponsorship of that bill, too, because medals earned in combat have to mean more than medals that were awarded in the rear. In closing, I must restate the VFW's unwavering commitment to obtain the fullest possible accounting for our fallen heroes. It is the only humanitarian mission our government provides 24/7 just to benefit fellow Americans, and it is one promise that we must keep to the families to continue to wait for their loved ones to return from wars. We must urge the full funding and staffing of the Joint POW-MIA Command, the Defense POW-MIA Office, and other organizations involved in the full accounting mission, to include the U.S.-Russia Joint Commission on POWs and MIAs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I look forward to your questions.